Perfect. Okay, so welcome everybody. So before we get into choosing the student for the Kentucky Board of Education position, I do have a few notes to announce to you all just about these virtual meetings. So this meeting must comply with the requirements of the Open Meetings Act, and accordingly, the public may be able to view the meeting via a link provided in the advertised agenda. So with that, please ensure your video is streaming the best you can and that you can be seen throughout the duration of the meeting. And for any items that require a vote, which there will be 2 of those, a roll call vote will be necessary to record the vote of each board member. So the member should just state their name, pause, and then say I vote yes or I vote no. And just, if you could, silence or turn off other electronic devices that may cause disruptions. And with that, we're going to go to a roll call.
Okay, Hunter is not here yet. BJ is not here. Anastasia?
Yes, I'm here.
Justin? Justin, are you able to unmute and confirm that you're here? I see you.
Here.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Shraman?
I'm here.
Alexandra?
I'm here.
And Bentley?
Here.
Okay, Chair, you do have a quorum.
Cool. So we're going to go on to the selection of the 3 candidates for the position. So just to quickly review, to be selected as the student member, the applicant must be enrolled in a Kentucky public high school. They must be a junior in good standing on July 1st, so that just means that they're a sophomore at the time of the application, and they must reside in Kentucky's 5th congressional district. So if it's all right with you all, so prior you were asked to review all the candidates. And if we could, a good starting place is for each member to identify their top 3 candidates out of the 7 provided for consideration and discussion. And just as some information, make sure to not refer to the candidates by their name. Just refer to them by their application number, and don't share any confidential information if that appeared. So with that, would everybody be able to give their top 3 candidates, and then we can go from there, just see what kind of numbers are consistent and just kind of discuss those.
So Chair, you may want to select someone to go first.
Okay, Justin, do you want to go first?
I'm getting my spreadsheet right now. Hold on.
Okay, don't worry about it. Here, I'll say mine. I have mine pulled up. So mine is number 1, number 2, number 1, number 3, and number 4.
I can go ahead and go if anybody else wants. So 2 of them I have pretty much tied based on scores that I've given. I have 1, 4, 6, and 7. But I'm leaning towards more 1, 4, and 6.
I can pop in now. I got it all pulled up. I have applicant 4, 7, and 3.
I could go ahead if you. I have number 3 as the best, 4 as the second, and 1 is the third.
Bentley, do you have yours already?
I do. Just give me a second to get organized, please. Sorry. My number 1 is number 7. Number two is number two is number 2 for me, and then gonna have to go number 6 with third.
Okay, so that's a pretty good coverage of all of the applicants except number 5. So the ones I heard pop up a lot were 4 had the most, I'm pretty sure. 3 and 1 were tied, and then 7 had multiple as well. So I guess if it's all right with you all, do you want to potentially discuss the one that we had all said the most? Maybe just what we think about number 4, since most of us said that person. So for me, number 4, they were tied with somebody else for second place, but they had a very, let me just pull up the information real quick. They had a very, very strong resume of leadership activities, as well as some pretty good examples of their personal drive through the recommendations. If I recall correctly, the recommendations were pretty solid and had some pretty good information on number 4. And it represented their multiple positions on the leadership teams, and the other activities that they started. And I think it kind of it covered a lot of the bases in terms of what the position kind of requires in terms of leadership. Yeah.
For number 4, I liked the fact that they seem involved with things involving innovation and creativity in schools. If that makes sense. And they, like Alexandra said, they have a really good sample of leadership activities on their resume.
I agree. I also like number 4's resume, but I'm kind of an English brat, so the narrative, I really enjoyed their essay, and I thought it highlighted personal experiences relating to how they could share with the Board of Education very well. So I scored their essay very high.
Yeah, I scored their narrative really highly as well. I really it flowed very well. And yeah, I really I thought their narrative was the best out of all of them. And it flowed, flowed and transitioned well.
The narrative is formatted really well, too, in my opinion. Just being an English nerd or whatever.
I will say, when I first read the narrative, I was very hesitant. It kind of felt like it was a narrative kind of used for a different application, and they just kind of threw it in here. But the more I read it, the more it just it fit all of the notches on the rubric, and I think it demonstrated pretty well their commitment to the school and community. But I do wish for it to have mentioned maybe more of how they wish to impact the board and how they wish to impact education. But I think it was pretty well-rounded. So does anybody have anything else they have to say about candidate 4? Do we want to put it in kind of the upwards pile of the 3, or do we want to make that one of the official 3 to send off?
I think we're all kind of all on the same page, and from what I can see, I think we all indicated that 4 was one of our higher choices. So I think if everybody's okay with it, I think we could go ahead and put them in as one of the top 3.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Cool. So with 4 chosen, we have 2 spots left. Now, if I recall correctly, a few of us mentioned 3 and 1. Does anybody want to talk about I guess, their preferences for those numbers, or any other that caught their eye is just that they want to fight for.
I personally had one ranked higher than 3. It just seemed like their overall application, their recommendations were spot on. I was reading through those and I was kind of being kind of picky with those. And their leadership roles really seemed to almost cancel out applicant 3s from what I read. So I had 3 ranked like number 4 or 5 in my stack. And their narrative, I didn't really see any problems with it. It wasn't as great as some of the other ones, but I definitely think they have potential.
I feel like the narrative. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Oh, sorry. Okay. I feel like their narrative was really like personable, if that makes sense. Like they kind of made like an empathetic connection. Like, if that makes sense.
I liked number 1. They were not in my top 3. What got me, I did not like the layout of their narrative, like on a like claim and evidence kind of standard. Like just kind of a more of an English side of things. I wasn't a fan of the layout and the way it was written. I felt like it needed more and kind of a better structure.
Yeah, I actually agree. I thought but I thought the recommendations and everything else was really great for number 1. But I guess for other applicants had stronger narratives.
Yeah, the narrative definitely fell through for me. The recommendations, I really liked. I think it was the second recommendation. It just mentioned a lot of their just like, I guess, initiative type thing to start their own business and the entrepreneurial project. And the resume was really good, but just the narrative it was not the best narrative out of the 7. I would have ranked the narrative itself near the bottom of the candidates. But the other information, it brought it up higher on my list personally.
Yeah, the other information was really, like, other than the narrative, it was really, really great.
Okay, so does anybody have anything to say about number 3?
I really loved the narrative for number 3 as well. I thought it was like one of the better ones, along with 4. And yeah, it's the same thing. It had like a good unique voice, and it transitioned very well. And like, yeah, I like the narrative for number 3 a lot.
I like the hook of the third one. And I think that narrative, out of a lot of them, it shared their passions and what they wanted to do for the board, which you don't often see in these narratives. So like, it's mentioned their desire to spread student voice, as well as like state their own opinion and stuff. So I think that in terms of narrative, that was pretty good. The other, I think the recommendations for 3 weren't as strong as I'd wish them to be, but I think they covered a lot of the like points on the rubric.
Another thing for 3 is I like how their narrative mentions that they're kind of like already kind of involved with the legislative process in regards to education. So it seems like they generally have an understanding for how decisions impact students. And so now they're kind of wanting to kind of like amp up their ability to make change for educate, like for the better, as a member of KBE.
I also ranked number three's narrative quite high, but what kind of took me away from number three was their resume. I did not see a lot of like leadership qualities in the resume. Like I just see goals, skills, education, and experience, and it's only one page. I don't know if they're involved in any clubs or if they hold any leadership positions or anything like that from their resume. So I scored it lower for that reason.
Well, I think from my perspective, considering the stuff that number three is involved in, they are kind of relatively high in regards to leadership, considering that they are the assistant vice president of their FFA chapter, and that's a pretty hefty task, if I may say, since I am the president of my school's FFA chapter. They seem to have made pretty good things. Never mind. Disregard everything I just said. I was looking at the wrong paper. I'm so sorry.
So I guess the question is where to go from here. We did, when we were all choosing our top three, we did mention 6 and 7. A few of us mentioned 6 and 7. And I don't know how you all ranked 6 and 7 against 1 and 3. But if you all think either of them raised higher than 1 and 3, that would probably be a good time to talk about that before we try to choose a second person to send up to the top 3.
I thoroughly enjoyed number 7's narrative. It was everything I was hoping the other ones would be, I guess to say. It tied in personal experiences with a problem and how they wanted to bring that to the board. And I ranked it very highly, and I enjoyed their narrative a lot. And on the English side, it was very nicely laid out.
I will say for me, number 7, the narrative was really good. I don't think I ranked the leadership as high as the others. The resume had multiple awards and collaboration, but I didn't see as many leadership opportunities. But the recommendations are tied in with the narrative of the collaboration and being goal oriented, and I really like that. But I do think I really liked how the narrative had mentioned Portrait of a Graduate, which that out of all the other ones, it was a nice breath of fresh air to just have the person writing it know what they're trying to go for. And that was something pretty good that swayed my score for the narrative.
I agree. I had also counted off for the resume for leadership as well. But then I read the narrative and it kind of brought me back to life a little bit.
Okay, so I guess we've reached a point where it's kind of do you all feel confident enough in choosing a second person other than 4 to put in our top 3 in terms of consensus, what we all like, or does anybody want to say something else against the 4 possibilities that we have right now of 1, 3, 6, and 7?
Personally, I would not choose 3 just because I feel like there's a lack of information, a lack of leadership, just based on kind of what we've talked about and the way the recommendations and the leadership and the resume kind of seemed. Their narrative was okay, but I think if I had to choose, I'd probably go with 1, 7, or 6 personally.
For number 6, I'm going to be honest, it wasn't exactly my favorite application of the bunch. It's just, they kind of, in their narrative at least, they kind of seems like they didn't have a specific point that they wanted to discuss. They kind of were all over the place. Like one paragraph seems like it's completely unrelated to the paragraph before it, one after it.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't really. Yeah, the flow wasn't as good as the other applicants for the narrative part.
I agree as well. It was like these really nice facts and points, but there was no like tie to like, well, I'm doing this to combat this, and this is what I could take to the board. It was just kind of like, here's some problems.
There was no how do we fix these problems.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. They just kind of threw out the problems and then didn't say what they wanted to do for them. But when considering it, I feel like one of the biggest things choosing these applicants is to consider the entire application as a whole. And sometimes the narrative does not, like, it depends on what we want to see out of the applicant. Do we want to see a stronger narrative, or do we want to see stronger leadership potential in the resume and recommendations? So I keep that in mind when reading through these. Like applicant 6, it did not have as amazing as a narrative. It had okay leadership and okay recommendations, but that definitely did drop number 6 on my list.
Yeah, with that point, the narrative to me is kind of a very important piece, because some kids don't have like the opportunities to be officer this, officer that. But if they can show that like they're still very involved in their community and they still have a passion for it, the narrative is their place to shine.
I kind of feel like what we've been talking about is like everything as a whole, but I agreeing with Justin. I think not everybody has the opportunity nor the resources to become those officers or get highly involved because they might have to watch siblings or something like that. So I always take that into consideration because we don't know what county they're from. We don't know their living situation. So when I look at that, I'd look at it purely on what they have done. Does it seem like the people who are giving the recommendations have really gotten a chance to know them and haven't just had them in a class for a year? And does the narrative really represent something that, because some of them have addressed it more of like what their advocacy goals are, and does that align with what we work on the council, and is that stuff that the Board of Education would support and that kind of stuff, and is that like one of their goals? And so I think 1 and 7 kind of match everything that we've been talking about, because I feel like 3 and 6 we keep going back and forth on, well, we like this but we don't like that. And I think looking overall, at least from what I've heard and kind of what I read, 1 and 7 seem to be the other 2 options that we should really be considering, I guess. If I'm wrong, let me know, but I kind of feel like that's the gist that we're starting to get.
I would definitely be okay with number 7 going in our top 3.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so perfect. So 4, 7, and then as Meredith said in the chat, 1 we've also been mentioning as well. I don't think we had too much opposition to 1. Well, kind of, but in between 1 and 6, definitely personally, I feel 1 was greater, and what I've gotten from you guys is that 1 was 2. If you all agree there, we can probably honestly just choose our 3 now and go from there.
Yep, I agree.
Okay then, so I guess 471 does before we go on to vote, is there any other points that people want to bring up about any of the other numbers or just something else? I think we've hit a pretty good point on these numbers, but I just want to make sure we've all said what we need to. So I guess, if everybody's good, I guess we can move on. So, based on these candidates' outstanding applications, I would ask the committee to entertain a motion to approve candidates 4, 1, and 7 as the 3 finalists for the 2023-2024 non-voting student member of the Kentucky Board of Education. Now, is there a motion from anyone to approve candidates 4, 1, and 7 as the finalists? Bentley?
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
I second.
Perfect. Now on to a roll call vote.
Okay. Anastasia,
Yes.
Justin,
Yes.
Schraman,
Yes.
Alexandra,
Yes.
Bentley.
Yes.
Okay, Chair. All members have voted.
Okay, so guess for adjournment at this time, I need a motion to adjourn the meeting. Anybody make that?
Make a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Cool. And now another roll call vote.
Anastasia,
Yes.
Justin,
Yes.
Schraman,
Yes.
Alexandra,
Yes.
Bentley.
Yes.
Cool. Well, that was a win.